Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and a link in the info box once the video has rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please share the show, as sharing the show increases the live audience, which in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. One last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. I have Sleeping Warrior with us. How are you doing, Sleeping Warrior? Can I get a quick introduction first?
Cheesed off, if I'm honest, mate. Wasted my time last night. Got been sent on a merry-go-round. Generally kind of cheesed off with the way things went.
I enjoyed it.
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't. I left after an hour. We had a hangout lined up with Steve, and when we joined the hangout, there were 3 people against us. It was 3 on 3. There was Geo Strieber, there was the Rumpus, and there was... Who was the other one? Sean Hufford on Red Rhetoric's account. So I thought, great, 3 on 3 is a good number because it gives us all enough time to speak. And going from experience with this particular chat, your chat, we know that we're going to be able to have enough conversation and enough progress being made so there will be a fluid disagreement, debate, and it would make progress. There would be actual progress being made. So I was looking forward to that. I was quite happy with that, and I was ready to enjoy a really good debate with 3 people that can debate. Alex can debate, Sean can debate, so can Rumpus. So I was looking forward to that. But it didn't start very well because the problem was Steve made a point that science by consensus is the foundation for the debate. And it was challenged on the grounds that that's the bandwagon fallacy. And Steve said, no, it's not the bandwagon fallacy. And I was like, well, it is, because by consensus, that is the bandwagon fallacy. And that is it. You don't have facts established by consensus. You have facts established by facts. They speak for themselves. But that wasn't the premise for the whole of the debate. The whole of the debate was based on consensus. And when we started the hangout with 3 on 3, within 3 minutes of going live, it became 7 on 3. So if he's already said he's going to base, we're doing this based on the consensus. It's now 7 onto 3, and it ends up being a clusterfuck. And the problem with that is you don't get any forward movement, you don't get any good debate, you don't get any back and forth. Everybody wants to take up a swipe at the microphone, and I understand that, and that's one of the reasons why I never do it. I remind myself of my first ever experience on a hangout with Red Rhetoric, and it was 1 against 7. I mean, there was like maybe 6. I can't remember exactly who it was now, but it was me against the world. And I'm never going to do it again because there was no progression whatsoever. And that's what happened last night. We went in at the start. There was 3 of us, and it was 3 on 3. And I thought, that's brilliant. But within 5 minutes of going live, after being told that we were going to be applying the science by consensus, which fundamentally I disagree with, it ended up being 7 of them. 7 onto 3. So it got to a point where, for me, we were trying to ask them to address the point at hand. Rumpus got to make numerous presentations, and typical Rumpus, he complained that he didn't get to finish, and he wanted a few more minutes, and he'd already had like 10, and we're all sat around waiting patiently, and he gets towards the crescendo of his point, and then eventually Steve wraps him up, and Rumpus then complains again that he's not had enough time, and he starts getting snotty with Steve because Steve was saying, come on, Rumpus, there are other people here. And Rumpus really wanted to be heard. And, you know, I was quite happy for him to leave in there because he said quite a lot of great sound bites for us about how bad Google Earth is and how unreliable it is and how inaccurate it is and all this stuff that basically he was making our argument for us. So leaving Rumpus to chat along on his merry way was really rather good. But as time went by, it dawned on me personally that the point at hand was not being addressed. And you were on board with that. You'd asked numerous times, could somebody address the point in hand? The point in hand is, why can we see the land in the video? That was the claim that was made, and it wasn't being done. And you asked 4, 5, 6 times. I asked numerous times in the side chat, but unfortunately, with the way that he had his Hangout recorded, and I didn't know this before, but you can't see that on playback. So you can't see me saying to Steve, please just ask Rumpus, at what elevation must he be to see that on a spheroid Earth? And I asked that 3, 4 times, and it never got addressed. And it got to the point where Steve, the host, basically said, they are dealing with your claim directly. And at that point, nobody had even mentioned how to see the land. They were talking about the observer height, of how it's inaccurate on Google and all this nonsense, right? Which is true, but it's part of the, it's only part of it. It isn't the main point. The main point of the claim was that we see land that is not there on a ball, and it wasn't being addressed. Several times the host was asked to address this, and several times it wasn't getting addressed, and Nathan got spoke over continuously. I realised that I weren't going to get a word in edgeways. Rumpus had freedom of the mic, which is fine. If he's going to get freedom of the mic, then he was going to hang himself, and he was hanging himself fantastically anyway. But time went on, and Nathan was reasserting the point. Guys, nobody is addressing the point in the video. Nobody is addressing why we can see the land. It isn't there on a ball. Can we stay on topic? And it got to the point where Steve basically said, his words were, the claim's been invalidated because of Rumpus's nonsense that he was chatting away. Now, at the point, which is like an hour in, at that point, that nobody had spoke about the land in question that was the claim was about. Nobody had mentioned it. And Steve had declared that the observation was invalidated. Not that it was debunked, explained away. It was invalidated. Now, an invalidated claim is that it's void. It's been deemed that it wasn't credible in the first place to even merit discussion. That's what invalidated means. It means that it never gets off the blocks. You know, it fails at the first hurdle. And the host had declared it that after an hour. And I'd said, Steve, can I just check if that's really your position, that the claim has been invalidated? Then the conversation's over. I said, is that really your position? And he started off on a slight tangent, and I pulled him back on track. And I said, is it your position that the claim's been invalidated? Yes or no? And he said, yeah, I'm happy with Rumpus's explanation. And nobody at any point had addressed the land in the picture, in the video. The land in the picture was not addressed at any point by this point. Yet the host has now declared that the observation is invalid. Okay? For me, there's no more conversation at that point. Because if the claim, in his opinion, has been invalidated, there's nowhere else to go from that. It's game over. Now, I'm all right with it being game over, but nobody had mentioned the land in question that was the claim, yet it's now been deemed invalid. What an utter nonsense, rubbish host.
Well, that was an hour in. I mean, you've already mentioned this, but from the start it was the case, because they basically said, we live in a consensus reality. In other words, if we all agree that something is the case, then it is the case, and nothing could be further from the truth. You know, consensus does not form reality.
3 people was in the Hangout at this point, which I thought was okay, because if there's a consensus, right, you can't really get a consensus when it's 3v3. But within 3, 4, 5 minutes of going live, we were now up to 7. So if the premise is science by consensus, and Steve didn't understand the bandwagon fallacy. Did you notice that, Nathan?
The same thing, isn't it?
Pardon? Yeah, he didn't understand it. I said straight away, so the bandwagon fallacy is alive and well in this Hangout. And he said, that's not what the bandwagon fallacy is. If you can get some evidence to support it, stick it in the side chat and I'll address it. And I stuck it in side chat, didn't get addressed. So I'm disappointed really in Steve, because I got the impression that it was going to be a debate. It was going to be back and forth based on evidence. There would be real science involved, and there would be disagreements, and there would be progression. And Steve didn't even keep them on point, but he thinks he did, or he claims he did.
Oh, he kept him on the straw, man.
If Steve honestly thinks that conversation was kept on track,
he kept him on the subject of debunking Google quite well. They debunked Google repeatedly, and then when we pointed out that no one had gone to the land, Steve declared that no, that's sufficient. You don't need to actually address the observation. You don't even need to have the picture up when they're debunking it. They can just go to Google and debunk that. That was what was fine in Steve's mind. Hello. Oh, is that not a new guest? It's you sharing something.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Just stick this on screen if you would for us. Steve, for a guy that, and I'll be honest, Nathan, I'm going to chuck you under the bus a little bit at this point. Nathan sold this to me as Steve is like upper level in terms of the way that the debates are handled. I've never seen Steve's channel before, never been in there, never heard about it. I'm happy to go in. I'm happy to debate anybody on this topic because I'm comfortable with it, and I know that the facts speak for themselves. Now, the problem with Steve, and if you're listening, Steve, and I hope someone tells him that I've said this because I stand by this, Steve. The bandwagon fallacy is based on the assumption that the opinion of the majority is always valid. That is, everybody believes it, so you should too. So that is essentially what we were talking about last night. I said it live. I said, so the bandwagon fallacy is alive and well, and that basically is the position. If everybody believes it, then you should too, and that is what was said last night. So it's unfortunately, Steve, it started off terrible in the first place because it is the position that he who asserts must prove, and it is the position that assertions without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So the reality is, it is the position of science that we live on a spinning ball that's orbiting the sun. That is the position, that is the assertion, and that is the position that we take and we challenge. So he who asserts must prove. So it is to do with what evidence is there to prove that we spin or that we are curved or whatever. So Steve's premise for the whole hangout was based on consensus. So when we went into the, I'll show you. I'll show you the first clip from like when we started to what happens within 5 minutes. So knock the sound off because we don't need the sound. So as you can see, right at the very start, first 30 seconds, we've got the rumpus. Steve is the host. We've got Sean on Red's account, and we've got GeoStreamer. So at that point, there's 3. And then on our side of the debate, there's Chris Monk, Mr. Oakley himself, and myself. That's 3. And we've got host. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So one of them being the host. I'm all right with that. That works perfectly. However, look at what happens within 5 minutes of going in. Okay, maybe it's 10. Let me find out where it at. Here we go. So at this point, so we're all right. 18 minutes in, we're okay. I'm just trying to find a bit where, right, now look what's happening. We've got Chris with Roman numerals. You can't even string a sentence together. We've got Soundly, who's never come into any of the hangouts.
He's the organ grinder.
He may have come into one.
Sorry, he's the organ grinder. So Rumpus is giving us all the answers, but he's actually being fed the answers by Soundly in the side chat. So we were basically talking to the monkey while the organ grinder worked away.
Well, Soundly, as far as I can recall, has only been into one hangout when he thought that I was bad-mouthing him, and I was actually using him as to prove what refraction does to light, and that is, of course, light bends up as well as down. And that was when Soundly came in. He came in on one hangout, didn't come in on any of the other hangouts, but for some reason, Soundly's now on the panel against us, right, which I found interesting. Well, I've got Chris at Roman numerals, can't string a sentence together. Soundly, basically never seen anything of him. And we have, not in yet, but here we go. We have Miles the Liar Davis. Now, when Miles comes in at 36 minutes, I'll be honest, Nathan, I looked and I thought, do I actually want to be here with this liar on the panel arguing on what is supposed to be a level up? Now, for me, this guy being here at all is nonsense. But Chris being here with Roman numerals and Miles together, this is like, it's like the creche. This is where this is like the playground, the school playground, but this is the creche part. They're only there to make up numbers. This is the consensus bit. This is science by consensus. This is the bandwagon fallacy. They add nothing to the debate. And Miles is discredited. He's been shown to be lying like 3 times in the last week. Miles isn't a credible witness at all. because we've shown that he has deliberately lied, knowingly, intentionally deceived. Now, there is a difference between making a mistake and lying, and Miles does tell lies. I mean, I showed it when he said that, no, Ranty, I haven't called you a liar, Ranty, and we all know that he has. And it flowed out of his mouth without any consideration for its truth whatsoever. But now Miles is now in the hangout. And at 36 minutes, I'm thinking to myself, why is he here? I don't want to be here. I'll be honest, I don't want to be here. And then time goes by. And to be honest, it was quite cordial. I was happy with how things were going. GeoStream was making his points. But we get to a point where, now look at how many people's in. Now, I don't know who's been added here, but there's somebody with this. I mean, it was 7 ballers onto 3. Now, that's perfect example of ganging up on, not having a debate, it's having a clusterfuck. And it's literally, if science by consensus is Steve's position, then by this definition alone, we are never going to win this one, because no matter what evidence, no matter what debate skills we use, no matter what sleight of hand tactics, because it is tactics to some degree, but no matter what happens, from basically, we're not going to win, because there is 7 ballers on a panel against me, Chris, and Nathan is continuously being spoke over. He's being muted. I don't know whether that was by Steve himself, but Nathan started getting pissed off. I started getting pissed off, and I realized that this wasn't going to go anywhere, because fundamentally it wasn't working. The structure for the debate was lost when he started inviting several other people in. We started off 3-on-3. Steve, that's the way you should have left it. You shouldn't have introduced other people, and you should definitely not have introduced Miles the Liar Davis and Chris with Roman numerals, because Miles is a liar and Chris can't string a sentence together. So what are they there for? You should have kept it 3-on-3. You should have had the debate. We should have had the disagreement. We should have had the fallout, the evidence, the...
Hello.
Hello. Can you not mute people, please?
I didn't mute anyone.
Oh, didn't you? Oh, I thought you did.
No.
Did you just go silent when we had Tim Osman in, Anthony?
I went silent because I'm in a paradox, and to be honest, Tim, I'm gonna remove Tim because
no, don't remove Tim. What are you doing? Why would you do that?
No, I'm removing him, Nathan, because he removed me for no reason the other week. Now, if he wants to come in on a stock account, come back in, Tim, and he can remove me. But that was simply because you removed me last week for no reason, because you were cornered.
Right, well, Tim's got extra accounts. Don't remove him if he comes back in.
Yeah, I won't snipe him.
You've got your own back. Happy days. Not
that was the payback for sniping me for no reason last week, Tim. Don't be a bitch. We can both snipe each other. Oh, and by the way, I just want to make an admission for my behaviour last night. I did snipe Miles right at the very end. Not because it was debate time. It was the final minute where you get like an extra minute just to say your piece and disappear. And I sniped him at that point because Miles doesn't deserve anything at all by way of airtime, because he's a liar. You are fundamentally a liar, Miles. You have no business being in there because you are a liar. So I sniped you because I don't like you. It's that simple. Didn't deserve to be there. Shouldn't have been there. And Steve, you fucked it up, man.
I don't think you've been swearing loads this morning. I can tell you're in a bad mood, but no more swearing, please.
I'll try and curb my enthusiasm, but I was just disappointed because my impression was there would be a debate. And when we went in there, it was 3-on-3. And let's be honest, Rumpus can debate. He can. Whether he talks credible or not is a different point, but he can debate. Don't particularly agree with Rumpus, but he can do it.
Right, leave Timothy Osman alone. Don't snipe each other. You've got your own back. Hopefully you can actually have a conversation this time.
Well,
hi, Tim.
Just consider it payback, Tim. We're straight.
Oh, I don't mind. I got a few accounts.
You won't get sniped again. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's not your fault, man. There was too many on the Globe side in there. Not to say that you would have won the argument if it was 3 versus 3 or something, but it was pretty unfair. Everybody was talking over.
To be honest, it would have kept on topic. I mean, how many times did Nathan ask for the actual claim to be addressed, and it wasn't addressed once by an hour? Not once. They claim it was all to do with the observer height. That's a part of it. I agree. But an hour in, the observer height point should be long gone. You should be talking about the point in hand, which is, why can we see the land? Now, it never got 1 hour in, he declared it invalid, right? That's nonsense, because even if it's even if there's credible arguments against the points that are being made, it would be debunked. But to declare it invalid is nonsense. So for me, it was like, at that point, there's no point in conversing. For me, it's like, right, I'm out of here. See you later. Bye-bye. So I left. Didn't rage quit. I just realized that this was going nowhere. Nathan didn't realize I'd left for a while. Then he realized, but at the same time, he was getting cheesed off because fundamentally, he wasn't getting his chance to speak. He was being spoke over. He was being muted. And that's really, we're supposed to be putting our case forward. And Rumpus seemed to be doing that for us. Great. I was happy to leave him doing it. But Steve, that was a terrible hangout. It really was.
I don't agree. I thought it was a good hangout. I mean, he said and confessed, he was quite open about it, that they want to base their opinions on consensus. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that's the way the world works at the moment, and that is the opinion of the people. So I've got no issue with that whatsoever. People who are watching have got a choice. They can either choose to say, well, I see that they have come to a consensus in this hangout, therefore the globe has won, or not. You know, that's your choice. But if it's perceived that they won because they had more people and they had what you call the bandwagon fallacy in their favour, if that to the audience member says they won, then good for the audience member. That's their choice.
Yeah, I listened to it twice, and both times I kind of recognized that. I guess I'll say first that number one, you guys kind of started out pretty strong in that saying, Riley saying, you know, I'm a flat earther, and that means that the earth is not a ball, basically. So look, guys, these guys are mostly Steve. He's very, very well qualified in the arts of logical fallacies. So you're not going to get that you're not going to pull that kind of stuff with these people, first of all. But second off, I think that your claim was kind of just, it was kind of weak. You know, I mean, you're just going to say, well, we're testing the globe model. We're in a debate about flat Earth, and we're testing the Google Earth to be specific. And I mean, you guys should have watched enough videos to know that there was some issues with the elevations with Google, even on St. B's, like the beach and the cliffs. So I mean, you guys should have known this by now.
Well, they're points that will be discussed, right? That they're valid. That is valid criticism, right? I'm fine with that. My problem is that it's the bandwagon fallacy that was being applied from the start. Now, if it's going to be by consensus and he then ends up with 7 ballers onto 3, it becomes kind of irrelevant from that point on, because we're not going to get anywhere if the consensus is the rule. It's not, forget facts, it's what 7 people say, and obviously they're all against us, so we're never going to win. But the reality is there were things that could have been discussed, debated, disagreed with, and it would have been heated. It would have been good. It would have been, because you know and I know that Rumpus has got views, and he's very good at not very good at articulating, but he can present them in a way that sounds persuasive. And we all know that we could have had a really good disagreement there, and it would have been really good. But Steve, 7 onto 3 is nonsense, mate.
But the thing is you guys, I mean, if this is really your belief, and you guys...
Try again, you broke up a second, Tim. Just say that again.
If you guys are trying to get to the truth, basically, all I'm saying is that it shouldn't be like, oh, we're going in this to try to win against the Globers. It should be like, let's go in this to learn new things that we haven't found ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I want people will scrutinize everything you say, and if you have something that goes against the globe model, you will see when they get stumped.
Well, we did, and what then? I mean, Chris. To be fair to Chris, he stayed in for the whole hangout, and he got Rumpus cornered. And I think Rumpus knows he was cornered. And I don't know whether Steve knew or whether he thought it was irrelevant, but he was literally, right, can you show me? And then he made the point about the angle of observation that was calculated. And the reason why he was doing that was, well, I know the reason why he was doing that. And he was one question away from Rumpus being shown to be a fool, but Steve didn't allow him to go back to it. And he asked for it many, many times, and he never went back to it. Now, I'm going to give Steve the credit and think that Steve maybe thought it was a wasted point. But in actual fact, Rumpus was cornered there because he demonstrated that what Rumpus had demonstrated that his own calculation wasn't doing what it should be doing, and Chris was ready to show. Now, he never got to that point, but Chris was quite right. Rumpus was basically cornered, but it never got to that point because, well, I don't know, science by consensus. If they all say that it's not a valid point or want to move on and suggest that there's something else to move to and obfuscate, then that's what's going to happen. But
it's more argumentum ad populum than a bandwagon fallacy, I would say. But well, I guess it's actually otherwise known as bandwagon, I think, now that I think of it. But yeah, I mean, he's not an unbiased moderator by any stretch of the imagination. But the thing is you guys went in with, like I said, those arguments, and then you kind of left. I mean, you left your boy there, man, to be ripped apart.
Tim, say that again. You broke up. We went in there with what?
With bad arguments, basically, and then you guys left your boy in there high and dry with a pack of wolves, is what I'm saying.
Well, if you think that it was a bad argument, that's great. I'm fine. You could have that debate with me. That's fine. We've had many debates over it. I'm all right with that. I don't mind that viewpoint. But we didn't leave him high and dry. I was trying to get him to come out. I was saying, why are you staying in there? But his view is, I'm not going to rage quit. Now, my view is, it wasn't rage quit. It was realizing that 7v3 is just stupid. It is a clusterfuck. And he said that he didn't want to do that, but
Please
he did.
Don't swear.
And he also put, by making it that one-sided and refusing to address the actual claim that was being made, it was a waste of my time. But Chris was happy to stay in there because he wanted to show that he wasn't rage quitting or leaving or running away or whatever. And he deserves kudos for that. However, Steve, we were the guests and you should have really been focusing on what we were saying, because it's not really about Rumpus. It's about the discussion. And there was no discussion. Nathan was continuously spoke over. Rumpus hogged the mic for massive periods and was allowed to. And, if that's okay, then so be it. But you got to give us a chance to respond. And it wasn't happening.
On the other hand, again, I don't mean to sound like I'm just agreeing with Tim Osman and disagreeing with you, but I do agree. The argument that we went with was weaker than the one I intended to go with, because we're about a week behind schedule, thereabouts, maybe even a little bit longer, 10 days behind schedule, because Rumpus threw a spanner in the works. And yeah, I can eulogise about how wonderful the end result of that is, but it still caused a delay. So my intention, I assumed incorrectly, that we would be at the stage where we'd presented the flat earth model a few times and then we'd go on Steve's show to present it to him. But that wasn't the case. So in terms of what we did go in with, because we're still at the stage where we haven't presented that model, we had to go in with our older arguments, which is what we did. But I wasn't going to let him down a second time just because we weren't in as strong a position as I had hoped for. But yeah, you're right, Tim. What we went in with was a globe debunking, and I'm sure you'll agree, they're 10 a penny. There's loads of people out there with globe debunkings. So from that position, no, we weren't as strong as we could have been. Will we be stronger in future debates or future discussions?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but to be honest, do you think that even if we'd have done the alternative, which was to present the model, do you think that would have been a good thing for us, given that there were 7 of them on against us and it was bandwagon fallacy in play? I don't. That would have been a train wreck. Same
principle applies. I mean, what we did get to present and what we did get to say got heard by the audience. I mean, yes, you're frustrated because we asked the same question 7 times and then it got distracted away from over and over and over again. But that's what got saw. That's what was seen. So, that it is what it is. Same goes for Chris. Chris stuck around, and again, I agree, we deserted him. I didn't want to make a fool of myself because I felt myself getting angry because I couldn't get a word in. So rather than just staying there trying continually for another hour and a half to get a word in, I thought, no, I'll just end up getting angry. I'm better off leaving and not embarrassing myself, which is what I did. And I felt guilty. I left Chris in there. So I'm not going to lie, I agree with you there as well, Tim. I felt like, oh God, if I'd have been stronger, I'd have weathered the storm of 10 people coming through and basically talking over me. I couldn't cope with it, so I left. That was the bottom line, so I agree with you. Chris, stronger will than myself, stayed in, but he stayed in for a very specific reason. He wanted the answer to the question he put to a rumpus, and he eventually got it. And he got the workaround when it failed, which was given to Rumpus by Soundly. So he got all of that information by staying there and pushing the single point that he wanted to push. And every time they distracted from it and tried to put him into a corner on a random different point, he ignored it and kept on track and eventually got his answer. And it means that we can say now, they failed. They tried to address an issue in terms of the height of Snaefell and getting the actual angle to it, and they failed. It did not match. When they did the arc calculation, it didn't work. It was still short. Same as when he did it at the wrong altitude, which seems a bit weird that he would intentionally use the lower observation point when they've argued about it so much. But there we go, that's what he did. Got it wrong and then recalculated it with an arc measurement, again after being asked about 7 times. So that got seen. The audience got to see that happen. And I'm happy with that. You know, that was the best that you can expect when you're doing something like this. And if the bandwagon fallacy is in effect, that's what the audience will see, and they can choose to agree with that if they want to agree with a science by consensus.
Interrupted terribly. Every time that you would open your mouth, you got interrupted. That's clear for anyone to see. That isn't on little cheerleader team for them. They'll be able to see that. But as far as Chris in there by himself, I was like, dude, I felt bad for him, but he's a big boy, like he put himself in that situation. He has his beliefs and they're being questioned by a pack of freaking wolves. So that's to be expected when you go in the lion's den, don't have meat in your pocket, basically.
Yeah, well, we weren't supposed to be going in a lion's den. It was supposed to be a debate.
Yeah, but I mean, in a formal debate, what they were trying to do is actually kind of set the premise in that you're going to say that this shouldn't be seen on the globe model. So first of all, there's a contention with the height of the observer, and this is a big deal when it comes to observations. So they were trying to establish that at the beginning, which is very, very necessary.
Agreed.
Right? Because we couldn't have done that in the, how many shows now? 50 shows. We're still, I mean, this should be not Flat Earth debates. It should be Anthony Riley's height debates. I mean, that's basically what it's been.
Would you agree, though, Tim, that the only way to really establish it is to go and actually measure it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, right. Or, I mean, for yourself, yeah, epistemologically speaking, sure. But of course, I mean, a really good way would be to look at a geodetic map.
No.
Or what is that called?
No. Measuring it. Because if you look at the OS map and then compare and contrast it with what it says on Google Earth, there is a massive difference. And because of the importance of the elevation of the observer, then if there's such a massive difference between the two, then you can't pick one over the other because you just don't know which is true. So the only way
one is saying a very, very high degree of accuracy, while the other one is saying that it's a 30 plus or 30 minus meters.
No, that's not right. What we said was that there isn't the evidence to support the assertion that the plus or minus 30 meters is relevant in this instance. That's not saying it's accurate. It's saying it's not wildly inaccurate. And
look, you would have to define in a formal debate. You would have to define if you're going to make an assertion like that. It's not wildly inaccurate. Well, what is not wildly inaccurate? So 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters. So they've put evidence
30.
out there showing pictures alone, your video alone, and showing the beach to the cliffs and showing a mass discrepancy there.
Right, but would you agree that if there was such a big discrepancy between the two positions, the only way to work it out is to go measure it? Simple. And we've measured it, and we're happy I'm happy, based on the measurements, to reassert my position based on Google Earth. It appears to be accurate. Now, depending on how you measure it, basically governs the results that you get. But if you do it honestly, then it's accurate. It is. The 35-foot stands. Now, that's the only thing to do. I'm going to hold Rumpus on account of his words last night, and I said I would do it last night, and I'm going to do it again.
I did want to ask you this. What does this mean? 35 feet. Is this how high the cliff is?
Yeah. The observation height was 35 feet. You make an adjustment.
Okay, but you're not putting the camera on the actual cliff, and also you're not talking about the tide.
Right, and we adjust for the tide. But the observation height is above water. It's not above mean sea level, which is the Ordnance Survey reference point.
So, sorry, I've got to correct that. So what Google quotes is above mean sea level, and we were testing Google. Now, what Anthony's saying is correct. In order to be accurate, you just have to measure it. But at this stage, we're not presenting our measurements as part of the data. If we were, we'd need both. We'd need the heights over at the Isle of Man, which we're trying to acquire as we speak. We've got a few contacts over there, and the height at St Bees. So when it's come up in debate, I've said, yeah, I don't care what you use, as long as it's equal on both sides. Ordnance Survey on one side, Ordnance Survey on the other, Google on one side, Google on the other, tape measure on one side, tape measure on the other. So yeah, we could release that data, but it doesn't change the claim. Google Earth says it's 29. That's it.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't live in a model. If you guys are out to debunk Google Earth, the API says that it's going to be plus or minus 30. So I mean, that's just it's just silly to begin with. If you're debunking the spherical Earth, that's a whole different thing.
Well, sure. I mean, what we've done is we've used the tools that are available to us to try and identify what's in a photograph. So in the case of Ranty, the best tool, or so it would seem at the time, to do that was Google Earth. It's the thing with literal pictures of what you can see in your camera lens. You can get low and have a look. So that seems like the logical thing to use. And we are testing a spherical model in a Blender program that's plotted in at the exact dimensions. So it's not subject to the fuss or I don't know, the inaccuracies. I can't use any other word. These are the guys who we debated yesterday. These are their words, and they're saying it's highly inaccurate. But if those are the tools at your disposal and you want to test the model, then yeah, you're right. We don't live on a model. But if you're testing a model, you've just got to test that model.
Tim, would you agree that measuring the hill is the way forward?
Yeah. All measurements with observations as far as you videotaping it, where it's like it's irrefutable. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So that is the position. That is the expectation, right? To try and debunk it. Because if the query is that I'm much higher than what it says on Google, then the only way to do that is to measure it, right? Now, as far as I know, Miles has claimed in the last day or two that he's actually measured it. Now, I don't believe Miles, but even if he has, I'd like to see it, because we've shown that Miles claimed that he was at 40 feet when we actually showed him to be at 19 feet. So I'm really looking forward to how he measures it, because if he measures it with any ounce of honesty or integrity, then he will only come back with one figure, give or take a few feet, and that'll be the figure that I've got, because I've measured it myself. Ranty's measured it, and Nathan's going to be measuring it himself in the next couple of days as well, because Nathan wants to see. He wants to know what is the actual height, and the only way to do it is to go and do it yourself. We've shown Nathan videos of us doing it, and he wants to go and do it himself. He wants to see it himself, because it's like it's night and day.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, are we doing the height of the cliff or to the water level? Because that's kind of like very important. And it seems like half the time we're doing the observer height, and then half the time we're doing just the cliff height.
We can do the height above water just by referencing the tide height at the time of the observation. Whatever day or time you do the observation, you can get the tide height quite easily. It's black and white empirical. You can check that very easily. Nobody would argue against it, because that is how you do it. Or, I mean, for instance, in contrast, when you're close enough to the water to get literally a measurement on it, you can do that too. Miles claimed he was 40 feet off the water. At high tide, we know that tide goes up to a certain point, roughly. He didn't give us that information, but claimed 40 feet above the water. Well, physically, he's 19 feet above the high tide mark. All we needed to know was where was the high tide water, and he didn't show us because he claims he didn't record it, which I find is absolute nonsense. But Miles was no more than 21 feet. I mean, the highest that he could possibly be above the water.
I've got to interrupt. I'm really sorry, Anthony. This whole height thing is a straw man, Tim. So, in essence, to see this stuff, actually have a line of sight with it, in other words, not invoke bendy light, you need to be about 600 feet in the air. So, what we've said all along is on your model it isn't there, and you need to invoke refraction. And on yesterday's show I said, look, that's an acceptable explanation. If you want to accept that the light's bending around the sphere, you can. It's their explanation. But in reality, it's not physically there. It's not possible to see. I reiterated that at the beginning of yesterday's show. And for it to be there, you have to be massively in excess of these heights that are being discussed. So it's in effect a straw man. It doesn't matter if they get him another 100 feet in the air. They still have to invoke bendy light.
Yeah. The point is, Tim, I need to be at around about 296 feet or something, like, call it 300 feet, to be able to see that floaty land on a ball where I am. unless you're going to argue that that's for standard refraction, in which case it's a hologram. It's a, what do you call it? Not slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena. So that's what you're arguing the minute you start arguing for refraction, because you're saying that things are being pulled back from behind the curve that are not physically there.
Which is fine, you know, that's an acceptable explanation, and this is where I agree with Tim. What we have presented isn't a debunking for that in any way, shape or form. At the end of that debate, the same as many of the other debates on this channel, you can accept that it's slightly looming if you want to. You know, that's perfectly acceptable. If you want to believe you live on a sphere, you can go about your day happily accepting that. Me, I don't accept that, and I'm going to give up ridiculing it, because if people want to choose to believe that stuff, they can. That's fine. However, moving forward, we can present an alternative that doesn't need band-aid theories to cover up its failures, which is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a failure. The model does not match the observation, therefore you need to invoke refraction. Fine, but as does not. It doesn't have any of these band-aids, and that's the position we will be in at the end of this week, where we can say, it's going to be dull. I've got to be honest, when people see the presentation, it's not going to be flashing lights and, you know, X Factor style excitement. It's going to be a model of the Isle of Man, and most people who aren't in the know will look at it and go, it just looks like the other model. It's like, yeah, it does. But with one key detail, that we actually can identify and match up all of the observations with very, very simple mathematics. It's not a complex file, far from it. It's a very simple file. But it'll be zipped up and presented and go, there you go, that's how your flat Earth works. That's the end of the explanation for our flat Earth. And whether or not this debate on the Isle of Man continues beyond that, I don't know. People may still feel that it needs challenging, but it's going to be zipped up as a matter of fact, and that'll be the end of that explanation. So, there we go. Have I been left on my own?
Just a request. No, I don't think so. Just a request from...
Thanks for joining, Tim. You've dropped, but thank you.
Nathan Oakley, please address this. The panel jumped on poor old Chris and nailed him over the claim that he was a veteran surveyor, a claim they laid against yourself as making. Can you address that?
Yeah, sure. When Chris has been talking with us, he has never explicitly said that he was a surveyor. However, he's detailed many different surveying jobs he has done and the surveying that he has done. And when asked on the panel, has he done surveys, the answer was yes. So if I have incorrectly assumed that he is, quote, a surveyor, I was incorrect. I'm happy to concede that. However, when you're discussing surveying at great detail and great length and the jobs that he's worked on, you can understand why I would make that assumption. So, yeah, I was wrong. So what?
As far as I know, Chris is, what did he call himself? A civil engineer.
I was going to say engineer would be the correct term rather than surveyor, but he's had to do surveys.
What did you say would be the correct term?
Engineer.
Yeah, civil engineer. That's what I believe he is. I mean, I don't know whether that's accurate, but if somebody said to me, what would you put him down as, I'd say a civil engineer. Now, does that mean he doesn't do surveying? No, it means he probably does do it, and he probably does it like 6 times a month. But does it make him a surveyor? No, it means he's a civil engineer. So I don't know whether it was a mistake or whether it was a straw man or whether it was insignificant by the reality is, whatever that guy is, he's way above what I am, what Nathan is, what almost all of the ballers that we're in touch with are. He is way above them. Does he make a mistake or two? Sure, we all make mistakes. The whole point of the debate is to show where the mistakes are being made. And if he's made a mistake, then show it, and then it will be corrected and see what the effect of it is. But for that to happen, you have to have communication. You have to have two-way dialogue, and it has to be a debate. It can't be this 7v3 nonsense.
I keep saying it. I'm happy for that to be shown. You know, in a way, me getting continually talked over. I think Tim's got a few connection problems. Can you just see if your mic's working and everything, Tim?
What's up?
Yeah, all good. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy for the audience to see exactly that. Me getting talked over continually, great. Why do they need to shut me up? I'm just some guy. You know, there's no need for that. But
to be honest, if you'd have said to me beforehand it's going to be 7-on-3, I'd have just said no. That's a clusterfuck. It's a waste of time. There's no discussion, there's no debate, there's no disagreement. It's just everybody just trying to stick the knife in. Which, you know, if that's the standard of what he's hoping to achieve by way of entertainment, then that's not what I'm there for. That's not what I want to have the discussion. I want to be proved wrong. I want them to be proved wrong. I want the debate. That's why I come here, because we can get the odd person in that can make good points, present good evidence, argue their position, and basically, if Chris has got the time, it was multiplying by 1,000 or something. I'm not quite sure what the point is, but I think you picked up on it, and they've attacked you for something that fundamentally Chris made a mistake on. I don't know whether he made a mistake or not. I want to see the argument. I want to see what was supposed to have been done wrong. That is the point of a debate. But if you want it to be the case that it's just 7v3, I wouldn't have even gone in there last night, especially when one of them was Miles and Chris Roman numerals, because it's what is that? What it's not going to go anywhere. So for me, it was a waste of time. I mean, I know that you're happy with it and think that there's value in it because it shows the audience what it shows. But for me, it was a waste. And I don't think I'd be going back into a debate. Well, I never do a debate where it's like massively outnumbered like that because it doesn't go anywhere. It's just frustrating for me.
But if you're in the pursuit of truth, man, this is the whole point. Is that's why I've always challenged flat earthers, is that they just make stuff up. There's no explanation for anything. Oh, it's a hologram, or why doesn't the sun change in angular size? Oh, perspective and whatever. It's just words at the end of the day. And this is the whole problem. Is that you guys can't look, you guys are not going to explain the sky at all. No way. Okay. And then when we look and do these observations on ground, it's going to be that if it looks like it's flat, well, then it's going to be refraction in our case. And then if there's obstruction, then it's refraction or dirty air in your case. So it's a null argument. There is no argument. It's just people's beliefs. It's literally a religious belief on both sides. One of them's correct, though.
Proving the sky is your assertion, but the evidence to prove the sky doesn't exist, yet you accept it's true. If you can show that 3 observers, or even 2, in the southern areas like Argentina, South Africa, Australia, when looking due south, see the same sky at the same time, I wouldn't be on this side of the fence.
I said this 2.5 years ago. I said this is how you freaking you end this. You guys have millions of flat earthers supposedly will get on the southern tips of these southern hemisphere countries, look due south at the nighttime, and guess what? You're going to see the southern crux. You're going to see the southern celestial pole. And yes, Tim, this does destroy flat Earth.
Tim, whose assertion is it that the sky proves anything? Is it yours or mine?
I'm not in a debate right now. I'm just saying, if it, like you just said, it would prove something to you about it being a spherical nature world that we live in. There's 2 celestial points, north and south, and it just will not work on any kind of flat Earth unless you're looking at Pac-Man oblique Mercator maps.
No,
it's just not going to work.
No, it's not true. It just needs to be like the blades on a Chinook helicopter, and you're looking at them from the underside. That would work perfectly on a flat plane.
This is another dirty air thing where it's just like, well, I'm just going to say it looks like a helicopter, and then it works, it just works.
No, Tim, it isn't at all. You can interpret the sky in 3 ways, not 2. There are 3 ways you can interpret the sky.
I'm sure there's more
evidence alone. You can't make a decision.
Look, I don't think you have the conceptualization skills to understand what 2 celestial points means if you're going to talk about a Chinook helicopter, personally.
Okay. Nath, do you want to present to everyone so that I can show Tim exactly what I mean?
Yeah, give me a sec. Done.
If the Earth is flat, Tim, and there are 2 rotation points above us, if you get them high enough so that everybody can still see them, but there are limitations to how big. If you get the ratio correct for land over the height of the stars above us, you're looking at 2 flat planes, 2 flat rotation points like the blades on a Chinook, and that can't be. You can interpret them both exactly the same, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, so like I said, the oblique Mercator, which basically looks like that, but a little bit better as far as the sky goes. But even then, the people in Australia are going to be looking southwest, not completely due south.
Which is exactly what happens, right? But for declination.
No, they look due south.
But for once you make the adjustment for declination, it brings it nicely back up to a ball. But if you don't make the adjustment for declination, it does exactly what this shows. So the issue then
why haven't you ever proven that? That would be an excellent flat Earth video for you to do.
It's not my assertion to prove. It's your assertion as the baller.
You're saying that this could work on a flat Earth, and it's my assertion that it could work on a flat Earth because you made the assertion?
No, your assertion is that there are 2 celestial rotation points, and that can only mean a ball.
He's
Correct.
bringing it into a null argument, the same as you've done with refraction.
No, it's not a null argument. The assertion by Tim is that the celestial rotation points prove the sphericity of the Earth. Correct?
It proves that it's a spherical nature in the sky. I mean, if you look at the equinox, if you look at all of these different logical inferences you can make through observations, it all fits together with the spherical Earth.
No, right. That is subject to and dependent upon 2 observers in the southern rotations point, the southern points of the Earth, seeing the same skies when looking due south at the same time. If they see the same stars at the same time, I agree with you. That evidence doesn't exist for me to make a decision. If the evidence existed, there wouldn't be a flat Earth debate.
See, this absence of evidence argument where everybody has, it doesn't exist, therefore, I don't have any evidence. But really, how hard have you looked for that? How hard have you looked for people doing Southern Star Trail observations on YouTube even? I mean, we look at flat Earth videos and we go to flat Earth debate every day, but how many Southern Star Trail videos have you seen? How many flat earthers have you gone to that live in these areas in Australia, in South Africa, and asked them to do it for you so that it would be more credible to you? Probably not.
It's at the same time, and I've got Dazza, the cameraman, has done a rotation, star rotation, a long exposure of the stars in the southern skies, and I agree, they do appear to do the rotation thing. Okay, however, there are other videos that show that it seems to drift across the sky. And there are other videos that show it as an egg shape. Now, I have no explanation for that, but it's inconsistent with what Dazza shows. In any event, if we accept that Dazza's is the one that's representative of the celestial sphere, my point is that another bloke in, say, Argentina or Peru, when looking south at the same time, will see the same stars at the same time on a ball. That evidence doesn't exist. So your assertion, because it lacks the evidence to support it, can be dismissed without evidence because you can't prove it's true. That's my point.
No, just because you haven't found evidence doesn't mean that I need to prove the evidence to you. You need to do your own research and figure this out for yourself. It's not about the art of debate if you're really out for truth, Riley. It's about going and finding out the answers for yourself. And if you would have done that, if it wasn't about the art of debate to you, you would have found that the evidence for spherical Earth is much, much more strong than the flat Earth will ever be. Are you a Pac-Man believer? I mean, why would you even bring this up? This would pretty much logically necessitate that the sun does some kind of a Pac-Man, and the moon.
No, you're misunderstanding, right? Here's the thing, and I'll say it as concisely as I can, and if you disagree, that's fine. But your assertion is that the celestial rotation, the celestial night sky, proves the sphericity of the Earth. It doesn't, because if it did, there would be the evidence to support that statement to be true, and I would be on your side of the fence and laughing at Nathan. However, your assertion doesn't have the evidence to support it being true.
See, this is just the art of debate. This is all it is to you, man. Your assertion, you're this, you're that. I mean, this is proven freaking fact of our reality, Riley.
That is not the art.
Go talk to any practical astronomer in the freaking southern hemisphere and ask him about it, dude.
I have done.
Go ask them.
Would you like to see some evidence?
About what? That it does something on a flat Earth? By what mechanism can the northern hemisphere not see the southern hemisphere stars? And why do they not come up above the horizon when they should be like 30 degrees?
Okay, so here's an email I sent in work to a guy called Stephen Harvey at acrux6495@gmail.com. He's from the Astronomical Society of Tasmania. Okay, you can look him up. If you type in Astronomical Society of Tasmania, you will find him. His name's Stephen Harvey. He's repeatable. He's observable. You can check it. I've had a lot of dialogue with him. And what I'm trying to establish is, can we see octans at all in the night sky? His answer is no. You can only do it with the naked eye. You can't capture it. So what he's done is he's done a 10-second observation, a 10-second time lapse, a 10-second long exposure picture of the night sky. And he sent me this picture, which is absolutely useless. It doesn't give me anything, right? But this is what he thinks I'm going to accept as proof. But in there, he tells me that there's the constellation known as octans. Well, that's useless. I can't see it. I can see the Southern Cross. I can see the crux. there. Sure, I don't have a dispute with that. That sits at, was it 30 degrees? I think. No, it might be 60 degrees. I can't remember what it sits at now. But my query is, can you produce evidence that octans actually exists? And he hasn't been able to do it, because this is what he's claiming is the evidence, and it's not a file I can actually open. I can copy it and put it into Paint, and I can play around with it, but it's a ridiculously poor quality picture from an astronomical society, and they cannot do it. Okay. Now I've asked him for the original file. I wanted the original file so I can play with it myself. In amongst these little pixels, he's telling me that octans is there. When I've looked into it and played with it on Paint, there is nothing where he tells me it is. Now, he tells me it's because it's too low magnitude, which I know that they are low magnitude stars, but on a 10-second exposure in the night sky from Tasmania with very little light pollution, you would expect an astronomical society to be able to produce credible evidence of the existence of octans. Guess what? They haven't been able to produce credible evidence to prove the existence of octans.
But that's another absence of evidence argument. I mean, really, like, the guy could go into Photoshop and put little pinpricks of light, and would that be evidence for you? I mean, it could be anything.
That's why I've asked for the original files, unedited off the camera, because this is what Soundly would give me, and this is not acceptable. But this is what he's telling me is octans, and I can't see it in there because it doesn't seem to exist. 10-second exposure. That's nonsense. So are you trying to tell me that your assertion was that, have you tried to do anything with regards to the rotation points and the stars? Yeah, I'm trying to get information to prove that there is a rotation point in the southern skies, and octans is in close proximity to it the way we're told. And so far, it hasn't been done. I've asked for the originals because I want to do the exposure. I want to play with the levels on it and see what I can get out of the image, because he sent me an embedded JPEG into an email that is useless. It's compressed. It's too small. It's not got enough detail. It's no good to me. I want the original file off him. But if the Astronomical Society of Tasmania cannot give me this information, and they've got telescopes that we could only dream of, what chances do you think that somebody like, for example, Dazza the cameraman or Sean Hufford or whoever is going to be able to get anything better when this is the standard of evidence that the Astronomical Society of Tasmania are able to produce? You see my problem.
Well, yeah, but it's one person out of millions of people that live in the Southern Hemisphere.
Sure, but he's on the Astronomical Society. He's got big stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're doing star trail observations, really, you could do it with the P900.
No, you can't. Have you looked into how rubbish the P900 is for long exposure at nighttime? It's useless. Its sensor size is way too small. It isn't good enough to do it. I've tried.
You can do it. You have to get out of the light pollution, dude. You can do it easily. And it's not about doing a 10-second exposure either.
Have you tried doing it?
Me personally, with my P900, no, I haven't.
You should, and show me the results you get. 10-second exposure at nighttime of anything, and show me what quality of photos you get. You'd be surprised how rubbish they are. You can do it with other cameras, but you can't do it with a P900. It's naff. So, back to the point. Have I challenged anybody with regard to the stars? Yes. Have I got evidence to support the idea that there is even a rotation point there? If I go to Dazza the cameraman, sure. If I go to other people, it seems to be egg-shaped. If I go to other people, it seems to drift across the night sky. So it's inconclusive at best. That's even if I credit Dazza the cameraman with credible evidence, which I'm not sure that I do. But if I credit him with that, then it seems to be at best 3 different interpretations or 3 different levels of evidence showing different things. That is not clear. That doesn't help me. So if I go to the Astronomical Society somewhere in the south, and the furthest point south I could find was Tasmania, and I know that they've got very little light pollution because it's small, then the reality is they should be able to get, with astronomical standard equipment, something significantly better than Dazza. And that's what I got back up from that. Now, does that mean that they're shit? Maybe. Does it mean that Dazza the cameraman's done something to make it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing on the eye? Probably. I don't know. I'm trying to find the truth. Am I getting the evidence to support the truth? No. When I hear you talking about the celestial rotation point, that evidence doesn't exist, Tim. If it did exist, I'd be on your side of the fence. But it's your assertion. It's you that's got to produce the evidence, and it's too hard to do. So I accept what you say, but I also realize that your claim is that the celestial rotation point proves the nature of the Earth, and it doesn't, because if it did, there would be the evidence there to prove it, and it doesn't happen.
We're coming up on approximately 1 hour left on this live stream. If you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe. and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box once the video has rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. How you doing, Ammo? New guest, good to have you here.
Yep. Hi.
What can we do you for?
Yep. Hi.
What can we do for you, Ammo?
I just wanted to quickly go back to what Riley was saying about star constellations. There are 12 signs of the zodiac constellations, and they change depending on what time of year. And also, the Orion constellation is a spring winter constellation. You can only see it during that time of year, because during summer and fall, it's on the other side of the Earth or sun, I believe. Earth. I'm sorry, my bad. So that's my assertion, is that you can still prove it because you can see some star constellations during different times of year, like Orion during spring and winter, and not during fall and summer.
What point specifically are you saying that proves?
Because if you can see it during fall and summer, because it's behind the Earth, depending on how it spins and how it works, and you can't see it.
Sure, but would you agree with me that if I'm assuming that you can see what I can see on screen. If not, just press the thumbnail at the bottom. That can be equally explained by what I've got on screen right now, in that if there's a constellation up here and it's beyond our vision point, we can't see it because it's far enough away from us, then that equally explains it, and it doesn't prove it one way or the other. Is that a fair interpretation, would you say? Excuse me.
Like he loves. So anyway, there's actually flat earthers. I think at least 2 that I've seen throughout the years that have Southern Star rotations. Mr. B is not a flat earther. He actually has a very nice telescope. I can give you the link here with his video of Sigma Octantis, Noctans. So there's not a lack of evidence. It's really just the evidence that you don't want to accept as evidence. And I'm not even saying it's proof that we're on a globe. I'm just saying it kind of logically necessitates, until something better comes for the flat Earth. And what you're showing right now is not something better at all. It's just another Band-Aid theory, if I will, to try to keep this narrative alive that the Earth may be flat. That's all it is.
Sorry if that was aimed at me. I was on the phone. Could you just, if it was aimed at me, just repeat yourself? But if it wasn't, just let it go.
I think it was general.
Okay.
So you said about the star constellations, Tim. If you can post that link in the side chat, I'll put it in the main chat for the audience to be able to click on it.
Cool. And then Ammo.
Yeah. Would you subscribe to Mr. B, by the way? This guy, he has excellent telescope and excellent videos.
So Ammo, would you agree
He's
that
gone.
Star be interpreted both ways?
West Coast, motherfucker.
I think we're back on the air now. I'll just reconnect to the Hangout in a moment. I just lost internet connection. My apologies to the audience. Hopefully you can hear me. Show you what I've got for my Hangout page at the moment. So this is what I've got while it loads. This stuff. Fun, fun, fun.
With what he's showing, then it's proving it's inaccurate.
The
That's the
point
point.
that Geo was making, that it was wildly inaccurate.
You get some feedback, right? Or,
It's because Nathan's joined. He'll fix it in a sec.
Yeah,
Are
you're
you
live
good,
again.
Nath?
Sorry about that.
No, not yet.
The echo should dissipate shortly. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear loud and clear. It's
Yeah, you're
fixed
back
now.
on the air. Sorry, I
Good
just
now.
lost internet connection.
So, Tim, the point that Geo was making, and that you've accepted without seeing a counter to it, is that it was wildly inaccurate. Well, what would you expect it to look like? You'd expect it to look like it goes up, get to a crescendo, and then peel off again whilst we go over the golf course. And what do you know? When he extends it out and he doesn't cherry pick his argument, that's the context. It does exactly what you would expect it to do. Now, what his real point is that this is a sharper drop. And I would agree. But the high point, which is
you
where
would
it was
agree
at,
what?
Pardon?
You would agree what?
His arguing point is that this should be a more severe drop off because it is a cliff face. And I would agree.
So it's inaccurate.
But the high point,
Wildly.
the point I was making, is not wildly inaccurate. So, no, I don't agree. He's drawn a straw man argument to present his argument that it's wildly inaccurate, and it isn't.
You guys are using straw man and other logical fallacies incorrectly. I'm just going to tell you that. It doesn't matter. But
Okay, well,
No.
you guys
I'm
are
not.
trying to create a straw man, really, with this whole Google Earth thing, first of all. Second of all, you're trying to make a straw man with the wildly inaccurate claim.
Can you hear me?
Make a straw.
Can you hear
What's
me?
up, Miles? Yep.
hey,
Yeah.
Miles, how you doing?
I just wondered if you'd like to see a measuring tape footage of that cliff.
Yes, please.
Which cliff? The one where I did the observation, or the
you
one where I
were
didn't?
showing.
Yes,
No, I'd like,
please.
to, I'd
love
like to see the one on this cliff. Can you show me a measuring tape down this one?
I can show you a measuring tape down both. Well, hang on a minute. I can't see which cliff you're referring to.
The 35 feet one next to the caravans. Can you show me a tape going down there or not?
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
Great. Present it.
The
The only problem with that is Ranty's got the file to do the counter. But just to conclude the point that I was making, Tim, if Geo showed it in the context of the elevation rather than the profile in which it drops off, then it's completely normal. So he's making a different point than what the point is that I was
Miles,
making.
I'm glad Miles is here because he just did a similar video about a beach to cliff observation.
Yeah, the one where he
I guess you
lied
could
about his
say.
elevation height. I've seen it. He was debunked and shown to be a liar.
He's not lying actually, unless he edited the video
No,
of
he
Google
was
Earth
lying.
saying it.
So
Well, he's
you
about to
still
show
see
us
him on
more,
screen,
so let's
Tim?
not throw around the lying thing.
No, he lied. Black and white lied.
So I decided to come back.
You see
So
my
how did he
screen,
lie
Tim?
then? Because what I'm talking about is Google
I'm just
Earth
trying to show you.
beach
See my screen?
to cliff.
Can you
Yeah.
see my screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Miles put his elevation at 40 feet. Okay. Above water. It was at
That's
high
not what I'm
tide.
talking about.
It was at high tide, and we know that high tide comes up to, well, at very, very, very high tides, it comes up to when he roads the land. But wherever it was that day, it's going to be around here somewhere.
No, it's
And it
not.
was at high
I've
tide
got
by
a picture
5
that shows
centimeters.
exactly where it is.
Miles claimed he was 40 feet above the water level. That's nonsense, and we measured it at 21 feet.
Can
So
you guys
basically,
hear me?
wherever the water was, we can take off that or add that to the height. And
You
that's
measured
it.
the cliff, you didn't measure the observation height. Stop conflating the two. You're trying to obfuscate the issue.
You said that Miles had done a video yesterday, correct?
I didn't do a video yesterday.
Or the day before?
No, I'm talking about his video where he's talking about the difference between the beach elevation compared to the cliff elevation, showing and proving that Google Earth is inaccurate.
Well,
for elevation.
Okay, that's a different point to what I'm talking about. That's not the
Okay,
point.
that's what I kept trying to tell you. It's not what I'm talking about. but-
Okay. Right, come on then, Miles. Show us the tape measure being thrown over at the 35 feet. That's what I really want to see. Because there's only one value you should get, Miles, and if you don't get that value, you're lying.
Well, let's start with
I love you, Miles.
the video
You're-
in preparation. So
Yeah, that's not the one we're
So
looking
this
for.
is the high cliff. Just for the record.
So when did this happen, Miles?
4th of February.
So you did have a tape measure with you then?
No, the 4th of February was a completely different day.
Okay. So 4th of Feb.
The time when we shot the wind farm was the 7th of January.
So at this elevation, then the only one value that you can get, give or take 5 feet.
Right. This is the higher point of the cliff, and we have a 30-meter measuring tape. So I couldn't get it far enough out with the first couple of throws.
So is this the high observation point? I'm confused.
This is the high observation point, yes.
Okay.
There's the tape going over, and it hits the it doesn't hit the ground, it hits the cliff, and it's still 30 feet.
How do you know that it doesn't hit the ground?
Because I went down and I marked the spot, I pulled it tight, marked the spot, and then measured the remainder.
So what was the
So
measurement,
what you're saying is
Miles?
you didn't measure this bit.
Hold on, sorry. What was the actual measurement on the tape?
So I measured this bit, I went down.
Can you tell us the number?
Isn't there kind of a horizontal variation there that would kind of...
So what I did was I went down, I'll just scroll through this to get to the point where. So here's where the tape stopped. Okay, I'll just leave it on this small version. So that's where the tape stopped. And I go clamber up that's 30 or so feet.
So this is how was this a 30-meter tape? So 100 feet.
This is a 100-foot tape, yes.
Oh, okay. You kept saying feet. Cool.
So
Yeah,
it basically
it's
gets
30
the
meters.
bottom bar. How much? 10 feet?
So we clamber up to the cliff. We're not at the bottom.
Miles, can you just tell us what was the
I
height?
pull the tape tight.
What was the number on that tape?
Well,
Miles?
he's saying it's max, but we need to see that. So let's see what.
Yeah, you'll see it in a sec. So we pull it out tight.
Hi, Emma.
30
Can you
meters,
say hello,
60
please? Hi, Emma. Can you say a quick hello?
Right, I'm going to get sniped in it.
And
Oh, you see?
100 feet.
Say hello, hi, Emma. You got another 2 seconds before I
He's
snipe
gone.
you out myself.
And I'm still well above the beach level.
Sorry,
how much,
I'm a
Miles? How
moron.
much above
Miles
are you
didn't
there?
let you talk, but Miles is
Because
doing the presentation
what I did
anyway.
was I marked that spot using a small stone that I pushed into the ground and a bit of dead weed that I, sort of stick that I stuck into the ground, which is all on this video. So there's the 100-foot point. There's a rock going in, the little stone going in to mark it there. And I also got a twig, this dead bit of weed, and stuck that in. I then went back up to the cliff, recovered the tape, clambered back up to that point.
Hold on, sorry, before you come off that, Miles, does it actually show us where it came to, like with a wide angle or anything?
Because we need to
Stuck
know
the
what height
tape in.
it got.
Just want to see the...
Stuck the tape in again, and measured the last part, which was another 30 feet. So the high point of the cliff
Hold
that angle.
Hold on. Sorry, Miles.
Just the cliff itself, which is not the elevation height, is 130 feet.
I haven't seen that on a tape measure. So far, I've seen it close up next to some twigs.
You have.
Well, no,
Yes,
that's
you have.
just, I could replicate that just by filming a tape measure next to some earth.
You can deny it all you like, but it's there, mate.
Well, okay, do you have a wide shot showing that it's against the edge of the cliff? Because at the moment this is a zoomed in number 100 and that doesn't really prove much. Do you have a wide angle?
I showed pulling the tape tight. I mean,
Flat Earth Destroyed.
If I play the whole
Can you say hello? Can you say hello?
Hello?
Play the whole video.
Hello.
It'll take quite a long time.
Hold on,
I just want to be here for this 100-foot tape. It's glorious.
You realise that's not the height that he's measuring, whoever's just joined.
But it's going to be. It's not going to be much.
It's the hypotenuse, exactly.
Hypotenuse,
Yes,
correct. Thank you, Miles.
It's going to completely destroy.
but it establishes that the. So, where were we?
Go on, Miles. Stick it to them.
So I pull this tape tight. It's fully extended.
Anybody here?
And anybody can go back and redo this
Oh yeah,
and
we
get,
don't
they'll
want
get
to.
the same result I did.
Well, that's debatable, isn't it?
And you know it.
30 meters, 60 centimeters there, and 100 feet, which is 100 feet. Okay, so there's that measurement, and I'm still 30 feet above the cliff.
Miles, just please can I ask you a question, Miles? Just a simple yes or no answer. Do you have a wide shot?
You answer how you want.
Sorry, who's interrupting me? Why are you interrupting me, Flat Earth Destroyed? I just want to ask him a question. Do you have a wide shot?
And a liar. Go on, Miles. Stick it to
Just
him.
boot this guy out. So, Miles, do you have a wide shot actually showing you measuring it?
What do you mean a wide shot?
Well, you've got.
How can I get a wide shot from? I've shown you me pulling the tape tight and showing where the tape went to on the ground in the same shot.
Right. So, do you have a wide
Go
shot
back.
showing
If
the
you want to
measurement
dispute,
being
Nathan,
done?
if you want to dispute that this is the measurement of that cliff, then by all means go back and do it.
Well, you're
yourself.
saying that the tape
Show
measure.
that I'm making this up.
Hold on.
This
So,
is-
hold on. Let me just ask another question then. Are
That
you
was
saying
obtained.
that the measurement
And
you got? Miles, why are you so averse to being asked questions? I don't understand your
Sorry?
problem. I'm just asking a couple of
I've
questions.
answered your questions,
Well,
and
let's
I'll
keep-
answer again. Ask another one.
Right. So, are you saying that the overall measurement is higher than 100 or not?
Well, it's 130 feet at that
So
point.
that's a yes. So how did
Yeah.
you manage to get that on one tape measure that's 100 feet?
Okay, I threw the tape measure over. It stopped around 30 feet above the beach. I walked all the way round along the beach. I pulled the tape measure tight, measured the 100-foot point, stuck in a stone, stuck in another twig next to the stone so that I could identify that point, that location unambiguously again. I went back up. I detached the tape measure at the top, which I fixed to the ground with a peg. Well, it was actually an old thermostat from an immersion heater, which is if you know what they look like, it's a long spike with a plastic knob on the top, which I pushed through the hole in the end of the tape. Having recovered the tape, I then, in fact, the tape, when I pulled the stick out, the tape actually slid all the way back down the slope. I went back down the cliff. I stuck the end of the tape in where I had marked and then measured the last part, which is what I am doing here in the shot that I'm sharing on screen at the moment. So we're sticking the tape, I'm sticking the tape in and clambering down, throwing the tape down the last little bit and measuring that last little bit, which came to, I think, 30 or 33 feet. I can't.
So to answer my question, you don't have a single measurement of the
So-
height of this hypotenuse.
So
you
we
don't
have
one.
we have a measurement of that point on the cliff as being.
So you've got a
albeit
measurement
at
of
a
half the
slope.
cliff, and then you've got a
Sorry?
measurement. So you've got a measurement of half of it, and then another measurement. So you don't have a
I've
single
got a measurement of 100 feet and then a measurement of the next part.
So yes,
if you have
just
a one,
establish that,
if you
Miles,
have a 1
you don't
meter,
have a single measurement
Nathan,
from top to bottom, correct?
Nathan,
You don't have a measurement from top to bottom.
Can I respond?
Well, the answer is no, you don't have a measurement from top to bottom.
Asking the same question again.
So, for example, when
have
Anthony measured the height at the 29 feet observation, you can see Ranty standing at the top with a tape measure and Anthony standing at the bottom with a tape measure, and they take a single reading of the entirety. That's a measurement. Well, what you have done is extrapolate the data based on several measurements.
And what figure did they get?
Well, hang on. You're the one that's making the claim here, Miles.
Just want to point out again to Miles that you do not have a measurement and you have not measured it.
I'm saying
what
I
you've
had
done
100 foot
is taken several measurements and then extrapolated the data, as opposed to what we can see on screen now, which is them taking a measurement.
Will you let me speak?
Not really. What is the measurement
calculated or not? Simple question, yes or no answer. Will you let me speak?
No, answer the question. What was the measurement that you got with using your thing?
The measurement I got was 130 feet.
No, you didn't. You only had a 100-foot tape measure. You had two measurements, and you combined the two after making a 2-minute explanation for how you got those two measurements and added the two together. So it's not an accurate measurement of the height or the hypotenuse or anything.
Now, Nathan, you're challenging the accuracy. Can I ask you, if you have a 4 foot or roughly 4 foot long piece of wood, and you have a 1 meter rule to measure it with, and you want to know or a 3 foot rule, a 1 yard ruler to measure it with, and you want to know exactly how long that piece of wood is rather than knowing it's roughly 4 feet, how would you do that?
I'd go and buy a 5-foot ruler.
No, you wouldn't. You would measure and mark one yard, and you would then place the end of the ruler at that point and measure the remainder. This is
yes,
no
and then
way.
I would declare, like you have done, Miles, that it was a combination of several measurements. So yes, it's not a single measurement.
So
just
no way
you guys like to play semantics.
To do it the way I did it.
You haven't actually measured the hill. You've taken several measurements of the hill, like you did the last time you went and measured it, and you've extrapolated the data from your combination of measurements.
It's not an extrapolation. You obviously don't understand what an extrapolation is.
It's totally a fine way to do it. I mean, if you have two, obviously, like he's saying, two rulers, and there's 12 inches or whatever, and there's, you're measuring something 16 inches. You use that ruler, you mark where it goes that full 12 inches, then use the rest. Sure, but my problem here is, wouldn't you expect some kind of, I guess I would call it like a horizontal displacement, as far as it's not a cliff where it's just hanging, dangling completely straight down. Wouldn't there be like a meter or two difference?
So what they've done in this example, sorry, Miles, I just want to answer that. So in this example, Tim, albeit crude, they've stretched the tape measure so they can get an angle and then extrapolate from there. For me, that's not satisfactory either. None of this is, if I'm ruthlessly honest. However, I just want to point that there's many inaccurate ways to measure this hill.
And there's an accurate way, and the accurate way is to use an Ordnance Survey map, which gives the height of the hill as being of the cliff as being 33 meters above average sea level.
Okay, so 33 meters above average sea level. The conversion into meters, because you like meters. So 33 meters into what measurement did you say you had on the tape?
The tape at the higher point of the hill, the 33 meter point, or it's actually, the path is probably at about 31.5 meters. That was 130 feet.
So 33 meters on an Ordnance Survey gives us 108 feet.
No, not true. 130 feet, and that's not true, because we're measuring an angle.
Hang on.
We're not measuring vertically, which
let's just get the
survey map
right.
is.
Sorry, Miles, can you let Miles, could you just let him speak? Miles, can you let him speak, please, Miles? Thank you.
Yes, but I was speaking and he interrupted.
No,
yeah,
Miles,
well, my rules, my hangout. Can you let him speak, please, Miles? I'll just mute you like Steve did to me yesterday if you don't shut up.
Yeah. Miles, I'm trying to establish some basic facts. You said that the Ordnance Survey map gives it an elevation of 33 meters. So I've converted it into feet, and it turns out to be 108.
Yes.
Right, so we agree that 108 is what we're looking at according to Ordnance Survey. However,
for the height above average sea level, yes.
For the height above, right, okay. But however, you've been back and measured it, You said that you got, what did you say you got it to? 100 did you say 130 feet?
This is
130
130.
130 feet works out at 39 meters.
No, yeah, but it's at an angle. That measurement is at an angle.
Sure.
Okay? So
did
you
you
have to do some trigonometry, and when you do some trigonometry, it gives the but based on the best angle reading I could get, it gives a measurement.
Can we see that
for
first?
that,
Sorry,
that
before you
cliff.
detail it, Miles.
The cliff
sorry.
alone,
Can we
it
see
gives
it?
a measurement
we
of
see the
over
angle?
90 feet.
Can we see the angle that you got? Have you got evidence of that measurement?
I don't think I've put that into here yet, but I have a dioptrap angle, which again, this is work in progress. I simply asked you whether
Eleanor, come
you
away
wanted
from
to
there.
see the tape measure, and the tape measure gives you 130 feet, and I would challenge anybody to go and measure that same point on the cliff and get a wildly different reading. Obviously, each time you measure it, you'll get something slightly different by a foot or so.
Miles, can I just stay on topic, because we've got you,
absolutely.
we've got you measuring the hypotenuse at around 130 feet. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you, yes or no, have you measured the angle at the bottom? And if so, what measurement did you get?
I made an attempt to measure the angle at the bottom, and I would need to check what those were. I don't have them easily to hand.
Can you go and get the answer, please, and come
It's
back
critical, absolutely critical. If you're trying to claim the height from it, that's what you're doing. You're measuring the hypotenuse inaccurately with two measurements. But if you want us to actually accept this as a height measurement, we need that angle.
Okay, that's fine.
So whilst Miles is getting that angle, I've also got the measured angle, and I want to know what Miles claims it is, because we've got numerous measurements of the angle, and right off the spot, I can tell you now that this 130 feet is not accurate. But this is what Miles is claiming.
Well, what's your claim, Anthony?
Well, I want to see what your claim is first. Let's finalize.
You're saying that my claim is not accurate.
It isn't. You've used two measures.
So you have the same measurement. What did you get?
We're waiting for your claim, Miles, and right now you're getting the angle.
And my claim is that the distance that on that angle from that point that I measured.
What angle?
100.
What angle? What angle?
130 feet. Now
Miles,
I'm asking
what angle?
you, what distance did you get?
What
Why
angle? We haven't got the entirety
distance?
of your information yet, Miles, so we're waiting for the angle, please. You've come on to give us your measurement, so give it us. You came on and asked if it was okay for you to present your information. I've said yes. You've presented it. Now present the rest of it, which is the angle.
You have to finish your claim, Miles.
No, I don't.
So
but I will do.
When
but I don't
Anthony
have
did
to.
it, all I
Of
heard
course
from the
you do.
chat was, what's the angle, what's the angle, what's the angle? And at the end, he gave the angle. Now, I would like you to do the same. Even though you haven't actually pulled it out with the tape measure and measured the angle, you've done it with Dioptra, that's fine, but I'd still like to know what the figure is.
And just for the benefit of everybody in chat, this value, when we put this number in, it's going to give us the height, right? For them to have any elevation issue with regards to the Mackle Lighthouse, it needs to be at least 300 feet. Now, they're claiming that I'm at least 120 feet.
Doesn't need to be 300 feet at all for Mackle's Lighthouse.
Now,
no,
you guys,
doesn't.
Miles, you're supposed to be looking for an angle. Have you found it
Yeah.
yet? I don't want to hear from you until you finish what you claimed you were going to present here today, which was the measured height. And in order to complete that, you need to give us an angle right now.
Because that's Miles' claim. And leave him on mute.
Nathan, your approach here is unnecessarily aggressive and rather
I don't give a
bullying.
shit what you think, Miles. All I care about is this angle, so we can get a height from this extrapolation that you've done. That's all I'm interested in. If you're not going to give it us, go away. Go away, and we'll disregard everything you've put up so far, or give us the angle.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm looking for the data.
Jolly good.
Right.
Keep your mouth shut till you find it. That's what you've come here for. That's what you've asked to do. I've let you do it. Now you're saying you need time to actually complete what you wanted to do in the first place. I find it quite pathetic. Get on with it. Just get on with it. Get on with it. What are you waiting for? Give us the angle. I don't hear an angle coming out your mouth.
Nathan, grow up.
Not grow up. Give me the angle that gives you the height. That's what you've claimed you're going to give us. The height.
Looking for that information.
We'll get on with it.
Wait for just a moment instead of
next time. Be more prepared.
Get
Next time, be more prepared. If you're going to come and claim that
angle.
you're going to give us a height, be more prepared and actually get your data together.
Right. So whilst Miles is getting his angle, and we're not going to.
It appears to be somewhat.
Miles, shut up.
Don't tell me to shut up.
Yeah, we just want to hear a number with a degrees afterwards. That's what I want to hear from you.
Now, the reason why Miles needs to do this is because the claim on Google is that it's plus or minus 30 meters inaccurate. Okay. Now, they always go with well, it's obviously plus 30 meters because it suits their argument. But
we do not say
Miles,
Miles, what part of I want to hear a number with a degree afterwards? Don't you understand? Are you dense?
That's the point, Miles. You're supposed to be proving.
Meanwhile, Anthony is misrepresenting.
Stop talking, Miles. I just want to hear a number with a degree afterwards. That's it.
So, if this anything below 100 for the observer height, Google's not wildly inaccurate. Anything around 50, it's bang on. If it sits somewhere in the middle, it's there or thereabouts. However, Miles has gone and measured it. And he's got, if you think that that was a credible way of measuring it compared to the video that I showed you where we measured it, and we've done it numerous times, numerous ways, and we're conclusive. But Miles has done it his way, and I want to see the angle. I want to see what he claims is the angle, and I want to see how he measured it. Now, when he gives us the angle, we'll get the maths. But the second part of it is I want to see how did he actually do it? How did he get that angle? Because it's important. And we've got it with different ways. We've measured it with dioptra. We've measured it with... we've done it 3 ways, and I don't want to say too much because I want Miles to make his case first, because he's the one that's claiming, by being a baller, that Google Earth is wildly inaccurate.
Well, Google Earth places the height of this at
No.
16 meters.
Miles, I'll say it one more time. I want a number with degrees afterwards.
The best number I have is 41.1 degrees.
Thank you, Miles. Right. Thank you.
So, and that's for angle A, the bottom, yeah? 41.1.
No, that's a good point. Which angle are you talking? Did you take that from the top, looking down, or the bottom, looking up?
That's from the bottom, looking up.
So it will be angle A. So when we calculate it, this value now, A, edge A, is going to come back in A value, right? For their claim to be plus or minus 30 meters, that means that if that is accurate, the value that we are going to get is going to be the 52 plus, let's just do the arithmetic. Hang on a sec. So let's get this right.
It comes out at 85 feet.
Hang on. 30 meters in feet is going to be 98 feet. So it's 52 plus 98. So it's going to be 150, right? So if
hold on, Miles. I'll clarify that for the audience. The claim is that Google is out by 30 meters, wildly inaccurate.
No, it's not. That is not the claim at all.
Absolutely. Hold on, Miles. I'll say it again. Absolutely. Let's just mute Miles because he can't seem to keep his mouth shut. Google makes it very clear that there is an accuracies 30 plus or minus in meters. That is their claim. Like Anthony stating a height that's given on Google. That's just the height given on Google. Google claims to be out by 30 meters. That's a fact. You don't have to accept it. It's a fact. Now, that claim has been put to pass by people who don't want to assert that Google is in any way accurate. In other words, wildly inaccurate. Now, what we have is that 30-meter discrepancy, which works out to 98 feet, and what they claim is 58. So what we are looking for is, 150 feet. That's what it needs to be for that assertion to be held as true.
It does not need to be 150 feet.
Why not, Miles?
Understand plus or minus, and you do not understand
plus or minus 30, specifically plus or minus 30, and we're adding on plus 30.
It's out by 30 meters. It's saying
no, we know it's not out by 30 meters. That's our assertion. Your assertion is that he is well in excess of 100 feet in excess of up this cliff. That's what I've heard. That's what I have heard on multiple occasions from multiple people. Now we're going to apply whether or not there is a 30-meter discrepancy in the globe favour on Google Earth. We're now testing it, Miles. Thank you for your measurements. We're now putting it to the test.
This is not my assertion. This is not my claim at all.
No, but it is your claim as in the baller's claim.
No, it's not. It's not a baller's claim.
Fine, Miles, no problem. We're going to test the inaccuracy of Google anyway.
Hang on. So let's just be
Okay,
clear.
let's test it anyway.
Hang on. Let's just be clear. Miles has just, but he's just flip-flopped from the position, which is plus or minus
Not at all.
30 meters.
I've never claimed that Google that all Google
You're
heights
lying,
are 30
Miles.
meters out.
No, Google claim
never
it.
claimed all
Google claim it.
heights
Hold
are
on, Miles.
30 meters
Google
out.
claim it. Google state
No,
it.
Google do
That
not
has been-
claim that. Google
No,
claim
Google
that
claim
any
it.
elevation they give
Google
could
claim
be
it.
out by
How many
up
times?
to 30 meters.
Yes.
Google claim it.
Now, the problem is,
Anything between 0 and 30. In fact, anything between minus 30 and plus 30.
yes, Miles, but the value that you ballers have been applying to me is that puts me at least 120 feet.
And if you add the height of the cliff to the height of the low tide and the
Forget the low
and the
tide.
height down the beach
Forget
and the
the low
height of a
tide,
tripod,
measuring
you get
cliff.
to well over 100 feet.
Miles, we're measuring the height of the cliff. Okay, forget tide. That's an adjustment we make afterwards. You know that. I know that. It's
No,
irrelevant.
no,
at
but
this
you've
point.
still got the beach to add on as well.
Yeah, we're going to add that
Before
on
you
as
get
well,
even to
Miles.
mid
Calm down. We're going to
of the
do it.
tide.
It's no problem.
Miles,
There's
you
loads
know,
of stuff to add on, and
Miles,
you're
please
trying
listen.
to present an some sort of isolated thing and claim
Miles.
some kind of victory without actually
Miles.
looking at all of it.
Miles, listen, please answer my question. Is the observer height above water or not?
It's above the actual level of the water, yes.
Right. So the mean sea level is irrelevant, correct?
No.
Yes, it is.
Right.
It's above the actual
No,
height of
because
the
you
water,
need to
not
know where
mean sea level.
is in order to know
No,
what the
Miles.
Right,
tide
Miles.
height
So it's the
is.
height above water, mean sea level's an average figure, which is irrelevant.
No, because it's a datum from which your point
Yeah,
on land
we
is
have
actually
just
taken.
said this twice. You've just confirmed it. The actual height that matters is the actual height above water. Any averaged
Correct.
figures of water before that are irrelevant.
In order to calculate that height, you need to know your height above mean sea level, and then
No.
you need to know how far below mean sea level
Right,
the water
and Tim
is.
Osman's been on the
By
show and
adding those
completely
figures
disagrees with
together,
you, Miles.
you get
Tim
your
Osman
actual
also
height.
has stated, Tim Osman makes it clear that the actual height, the measured height above sea level, is really all that matters here.
It is all that matters, but how do you calculate that?
Well, you can measure
Right,
it.
but that comes second. Do you agree that that comes second? It doesn't come at this point.
No,
What comes at
you
this
can
point,
do it
Miles?
whenever you like, but it's not
Miles,
important.
what comes at this point is what is the height above where the high tide mark is? Do you agree?
That's not the high tide mark.
Do you agree that the point is what is the height of the cliff above high tide or not?
No.
Right, then you don't know your model.
No, I do know my model, and
you
I will
don't.
explain it if you
Right,
would
no,
let me.
forget explaining. You've got it wrong, Miles. We are measuring.
I have not.
Water.
It's
We
nothing
know
to do
the
with
water
high tide
comes up to
mark.
here.
It's nothing to do with high tide mark because the average high tide mark is entirely
Oh, we're into
irrelevant.
this
at this
average
point.
high tide again.
You are lying again.
Not
You are
at all.
literally lying right now. That is
No.
not your position on the ball Earth side.
It is.
No, it isn't. It's
Yes,
above
it is.
water. We know where the water goes up to, Miles. As a rule, we can test it. We can show it on a
High
film.
tide mark is irrelevant. What is relevant is your height above average sea level.
No,
No,
it's not,
not.
Miles.
No, it's not.
And
No, it
above
isn't.
water.
Your height
You're
above average
lying.
sea level is irrelevant. Your height above
Will
the
you let me
water
finish
is
a
relevant.
sentence?
No, you're lying,
You're
Miles.
jumping in before I finish a sentence.
Okay,
Because you're
sorry,
lying.
Miles.
That is
Anthony,
not-
Please
let him
allow
finish
me
his
to say
sentence.
one full
No,
sentence.
Miles, you're lying. It is your
Will
height
you allow
above
me to say
water.
one full
That's it.
sentence?
No,
One
stop lying.
full sentence, please.
Stop lying.
I'm not lying, and
are. You are
anybody
lying.
listening
Right,
to
both
that
of you
can
stop,
hear
stop,
that
stop,
I'm
stop,
not
stop.
lying.
Right, Anthony,
It is
stop.
the height
Miles,
above
Miles,
water.
Miles will get his chance to finish his sentence. Feel free, Miles.
Thank you. Thank you. What matters is your elevation above the actual level of the water.
Correct.
In order to calculate the actual level of the water, you need to know first your elevation above mean sea level, which is the
No,
datum
That's
used.
not how you do it,
And
Miles.
secondly, I thought I was going to get to finish a sentence.
Yeah, but you're lying again. Then.
Secondly, the water level relative to mean sea level. If it was low tide when you took your observation, then there will be a factor to add on because the sea level is below mean sea level. If it had been high tide when you took your observation, then you would subtract the amount because the water would be higher than mean sea level.
Oh,
What you need to know is your elevation above mean sea level, and then you apply the extra correction based on the tide in order to establish the height above the actual level of the water. Now I finished stating exactly what my case is.
But that's not the position.
Now continue with your analysis.
So I've got a question, Miles. Then what was the point in measuring it then?
The point of measuring it was to establish whether Google's figure of 16 meters for the height of that cliff above mean sea level, mind you, was remotely accurate. As it turns out, you get a figure of around 85 feet in height just for the cliff itself, without going down to mean sea level, which is quite a number of feet further lower.
That's a problem.
Therefore, 16 meters, works out at around 52 feet or something like that, I think. And therefore,
hold on, Anthony, let him finish.
There is a significant error on Google.
No. And
that is
Anthony,
fine.
just let him finish. Let him
Let's
finish.
go
He's
back
got a lot to say. He's done a lot of work. I want him to finish.
Yes.
The problem is he's obfuscating and going away from the point.
Let him.
Not at all.
Let him.
Right back to your point, Anthony. Go ahead.
Right. Your point, right? It is your model that it's the height above water, and we know that because it tells us it is.
And that's what I just said. I just explained
But what
very
you said,
clearly exactly that.
Miles, what you said was that
Miles, come on, let him finish.
what you said was that you calculate your height above water with reference to mean sea level. No, you don't. You measure it.
How else do you calculate it?
You measure it. So in the instance where you claimed at 40 feet, if you'd have panned your camera down, we would have been able to tell where the water was. It could have been here. It could have been here. It could have been where his feet are. It could have been where his knees are. We would have known what the high height was, and we could basically measure it.
Well, we have a photograph of that.
Right. Well, why have you never presented it?
Well, I only got sent it yesterday.
Awesome. Let's have a look.
You seem to forget that wind turbine stuff was all filmed by somebody else, not by me. They simply agreed for me to present.
You're the one that claimed that you were 40 feet above water.
Yeah.
Let's see it, Miles. Hold on. Miles has just said he's got this evidence. We've grilled him on it yesterday. You don't need to keep grilling him on it. Let's just see it.
Yeah. Can you produce the water height at the time that you did your video, please?
You'll need to let me get the picture.
Sure.
No problem.
And whilst you're getting the picture, please remain silent while I address the rest of the nonsense that you've just said.
We didn't actually see the diopter evidence, by the way, but there we go.
Well, the point is, the claim is plus or minus 30 meters. So it needs to give me a value up to, what was the maths on it, Nath? Can you remember what it said? Let's go back to it. Hang on. Where's it gone? I've lost my little thing. There we go. So I want that one.
You only need to know one little phrase, Anthony, which is
no, Miles.
The old hags call the whole
Anthony, why do you keep saying no over the top of him? Seriously, what is it about Miles that triggers you so much?
What is it about Miles? Because he always interrupts me.
You're interrupting him. That's what's just happened. He started half a sentence and you went no over the top of him. That's what you've just done to him.
Right. Who's speaking? Is it my turn to speak or is it Miles?
Well, you interrupted him while he was mid-sentence. That's my point.
When did I admit? Right, he's supposed to be going away to get the evidence of the water height. And the last thing I said was, whilst he does that, I want to address the rest of his claim. Am I not able to do that now?
Feel free.
Well, if you misrepresent the claim, I will interrupt.
Do you know what, Miles? Fuck off. I'm out of here.
Has Anthony left? Or has he sniped me out? Is Anthony still around? Can anybody hear me?
Sure, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So, the height.
Hello, Baz. Can you say hello? Hello. Good to have you.
I'm really enjoying this today. It's really good. On you go, Miles.
Well, I'd like to address Nathan's point about the error that Google claims. Google claims an error of plus or minus 30 meters. This is an error. These are error limits. They are error boundaries, if you like. They are not they're not saying that every measurement is plus 30 meters or minus 30 meters. So any figure which you get for an actual measurement, which is different to what Google claims, that lies within those 30 meters, the 30-meter limits, is obviously illustrating what the error is on Google at that particular location. I can also just share a screen to show you where the tide was when we were actually filming.
Bro.
If I can get to what I actually need to do. There we go. Share screen. It's a pity that the people in the chat see the screens that we're sharing, or do they get something else? So not that one, that one. Okay, can you see the picture of the P900 on the tripod? Can you?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, right. This is a still taken on a different camera at the time that we were actually filming. You can see, I hope, that it is near to sunset here. I have a precise time for this photograph being taken, if you like, and you can see it is at the time we were filming, which was a few minutes after high tide. And I've got timestamps for the video timings that we took. As you can see, the water level is still down the pebbles on the beach and not up near to the grass bank or the rocks below the grass bank. This beach here, the pebbles on this beach slope quite steeply. It doesn't look like it by comparison with the bank, but there's still it's a relatively steeply sloped. There is a drop down there of several feet from the rocks down to the high water mark. On the basis of the tide heights and mean sea level, I have calculated that the high tide mark would have been about 1.76 meters below the 5-meter contour line on Ordnance Survey map. So we have 1.76 meters to add to the 10 meters that Ordnance Survey gives us from the 5-meter contour line to the 15-meter contour line. The 15-meter contour line runs pretty much right along the top of this bank here, just a little bit down the slope, but not very far. So we can ignore it, that and just say that the top of the slope where the step is here is a 50-meter contour line, and we have 10 meters plus 1.76 meters, which is 11.76 meters, plus the height that the camera was on the tripod. Well, we'll call it a meter, and we'll have 12.76 meters, which works out at just over 40 feet, which was my claim.
So where on that picture, if you can just put your mouse, where did you make the measurement from? Where's the...
What measurement?
So Al K's measurement, the bottom of the steps, is that in the picture?
No, the steps referred to. Well, Al K used. I'm not totally familiar with everything he did because we went our separate ways for long periods when we were there. And we went back on another weekend. I was there on the Saturday and through the night to try to get some night footage, but the weather was shitty. Sorry, pardon me for swearing. The weather wasn't very good. And Al turned up on the Sunday morning when I was still there, and he spent the rest of the day. I had to come back home, and he spent the rest of the day doing other measurements. So I don't know exactly what measurements Al managed to do, all told, over the 2 weekends. The steps that were measured are steps on the other side of the tea room. These steps, there are 2 steps or so here. There's obviously been some steps built there at some point in the past, but they were not built of concrete. They're built of wood and stuff, and they have worn away. So you can't measure the steps here. Now, Anthony and Ranti claim to have measured this bank, and measuring the bank is absolutely fine. I have no problem with that. What they came out with was 20-something feet, 23 feet or something, for the bank, which is perfectly okay. Happy enough with that. You also have the height down of the beach and the height of the tripod to add to their measurement, which I can't verify because I wasn't there at the time. I've got no idea exactly how they did it, and they haven't presented evidence of how they did it. But it agrees pretty much with the 40 feet that I claimed. If you add on the step down the beach, I mean, these rocks here are actually quite steeply banked as well. So 40 feet is a perfectly reasonable claim for this height here, given the state of the tide. The first video that Anthony shot, I have a tape measurement of that of 80 feet at the angle, using some trigonometry to get a vertical elevation for that. I think it came out at around 60 or 65 feet or something. Again, adding on the height of the beach and the height of his tripod, you get an elevation of 80 feet for his observation height. And further along the beach, as we've seen, 130 feet on the angle, and it comes to something like 85 feet. Then you have to add on the height of the beach down to the mean sea level, the height, then the height of the tide below mean sea level, and the height of the tripod on, and you come out with a figure of well in excess of 100 feet and probably around 120 feet for his observation height. These things are fact, and all that I'm interested in anyway is what those facts actually are. And I've spent a fair amount of time going and measuring these things in various ways, in an effort to get the facts. What is clear to me, and I hope to everybody, is that Ordnance Survey is going to give you by far the most accurate of readings for elevations. That's what they do, and they go around these, everywhere with tripods and using other fixed measured points. Everything's cross-referenced and triangulated in massive grids with loads and loads of reference points all over them, and they come up with very accurate heights for things. So why not just use an Ordnance Survey to work out what your elevation is when you take an observation?
Sure. I mean, after all this is said and done, Miles, I'm interested in the same thing as you, which is what is accurate, what is true. I might have to cut short this hangout if my kid keeps screaming, but yeah. The bottom line is, in terms of the spherical geometry of Earth, we are still in exactly the same position, which is to say that none of the stuff that we see in the observation, including Morgord Lighthouse, is actually visible on a sphere. None of it is. You have to invoke non-standard refraction in order to actually facilitate seeing any of this stuff. So the bottom line is, you're still having to use myth magic. You're still having to use bendy light to account for things that the model says are not there. And with that, I will say first and foremost a huge thank you to all of the debating panel, and of course to the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this show. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.